for their 8th grade graduation, I had to think back to what the speaker from my 8th grade graduation shared. Do you know what the speaker from my 8th grade graduation said? Neither do I. And so in order to avoid that same fate, I thought it would be good for me to start out by telling you guys something that hopefully will be truly memorable. So are you ready? Pokemon do not really exist. I feel like you guys should know that before you enter high school. Here's another one. You guys, 21 Pilots is not the best band in the world. And here's another one. This thing you guys do called dabbing, that's not some new thing. We've been doing that forever whenever we sneeze. Okay, so, sorry. But if none of those are truly memorable, hopefully this will be, and this is what I want you guys to really listen for, okay? You guys, you all are unlike any class we have ever had at OE, okay? You are totally unique, and not just because you are the largest graduating class the school has had, or because you're the only purely 8th grade class that we've had, and not just because every class that goes through OE is special and unique, which is true. And not because you're graduating in OE's 20th year of existence. All those make you special, but what really makes you guys such a special class is the experience you have had these past 9 months. As has been mentioned at the beginning of the year, Mrs. Pyavan, the greatest elementary school principal you could ever ask for, amen?
Amen.
At the beginning of the year, she decided that she would step in and also be your teacher while still being a full-time principal. Pastor Eddie agreed to be your history teacher. I agreed to take on Bible and PE. Dr. Watson and Mr. L would teach math. Mrs. Markham would teach science. Mrs. Holtz technology. Mr. Menjivar robotics. Mr. Pyavan music. It was truly a team effort. But that required some cooperation on your part as the students to be able to take instruction from and follow the various rules of so many teachers. Well then, shortly into the school year, Mrs. Pyavan fell ill. Simply said, it was as unsettling a time as I had ever seen at OAE. Our minds were halfways in the classroom and halfways with our beloved leader. But through all that, you continued to roll with each new assignment and schedule change. Miss Amy, Mrs. Sand, and myself stepped in to cover some of Mrs. Pyavan's duties. And hardly any week was the same as the one before, but you all kept on moving forward. In April, I moved, and once again, an adjustment was needed on your part. Mr. Alamo filled in for Bible, Mrs. Rich began teaching on Fridays, Miss Amy accommodated by moving the time of her literature periods, and Mrs. Pyavan returned to take on the morning periods, more adjustments. And by the end of the school year, you have had a total of 13 regular teachers, not counting subs and volunteers, this year alone. No other OE classes had 13 teachers in their entire time at the school. You are a special class with a very unique experience, but I believe that all of you are better for it. For 2 reasons. First off, the ability to adjust to unseen circumstances, the ability to persevere through problems, is a wonderful gift to have. Michael Jordan was famously cut from his high school basketball team. Milton Hershey started 3 unsuccessful candy companies. Edison and Einstein struggled in school, and Walt Disney was once fired from a job because he was not creative enough. None of them stopped at that point, however. They all kept working hard to achieve their goals. Now, the week of my 8th grade graduation, a film came out in theaters that few thought much of. Just another animated kids movie. Well, then people began going to the theater and watching it, and they wouldn't stop. It became a movie that grossed nearly $1 billion in theaters, became the best-selling DVD of all time, and the highest grossing G-rated movie ever at that time. And the name of that movie was Finding Nemo. Now, all of you have probably seen it. especially if you're a parent, at least 10 times, I'm sure. So I don't need to explain the plot, but in that movie there is a particular character. Her name is Dory. Now, Dory is a lovable, regal blue tang fish who has a severe issue of short-term memory loss. Now, while assisting Marlin on the search for his lost son Nemo, she looks at him one time and says, "Hey, Mr. Grumpy Gills, when life gets you down, you know what you've got to do?" What is the answer? Just keep swimming. Just keep swimming, right? It becomes a theme throughout the movie. Just keep swimming. Well, now Dory's getting her own movie. It releases a couple weeks from now, and basically has the exact same plot as the first one, which makes sense considering her problem. And in that movie, I'm told that just keep swimming remains a prevalent theme. So, class of 2016. Whenever you run into your own unexpected waves, remember the advice of a foolish fish. But more than that, remember what you have done your entire 8th grade school year. And just keep swimming. Secondly, I hope that you have not only realized the perseverance you all have shown, but the dedication of these adults who have stepped in to instruct you. In keeping with the theme of movies, the current recipe for Hollywood success seems to be take a superhero, any superhero, make a movie about them, and enjoy the big bucks. It's a sign of the age we're living in, I guess, and probably a sign of the times as well. But like Pokemon, you ready for this? Those superheroes do not actually exist. They are fictional. They always will be, but if you ask me, I believe that all of you have been in the midst of real-life superheroes this school year. And by that, I don't mean that Pastor Eddie secretly fights crime in his spare time, unless you count him tracking down those who have skipped their potluck duty. And I don't mean that Miss Amy secretly has the ability to fly, though you should probably see her drive sometime. Now, personally, I'm the furthest thing from superhuman. Sometimes I'm not even sure I qualify as normal human. I remember one day I tried to do something nice. There was a youth, he was having a difficult day, and so I wanted to spend time with him. I knew 2 things about the young man. Number 1, he was extremely quiet. Number 2, he was passionate about bird watching. And so I said, let's go bird watching. It sounded better than sitting in utter silence. And so I invited him. He informed me that it was not the right time of the year to go bird watching. We would not see anything too exotic. But I said, that's fine, let's go anyway. He said, all right. So we went. First time for me, I wanted to spot everything I could. And I remember seeing one, and I said to him, whoa, what is that? And he looked, and he said, crow. And I said, crow. Kept walking and talking, and then I saw another one flying very high. I said, what is that one called? And he looked, and he said, airplane. I said, airplane. You see that I, like many of your teachers, have the abilities of just an ordinary citizen, if that. But in the book of 1 Corinthians, which book did I say? 1 Corinthians, tells us that all the time, God does not pick the wisest, shiniest, most super things by the world's standards to do his work. He often will pick the things and people that we just look at as ordinary. God has chosen the foolish things of the world, it tells us, to preach a message as foolish as the cross, to save those who believe. And so, Michael, you give a wonderful prayer about being wise in the next stage and not foolish. I don't mind being that kind of foolish. And so, class of 2016, as I finish up here, I want to say that while I mentioned examples of legends within our culture who persevered through trials, I would like to elevate even more the examples of your teachers, who are foolish people that became real-life superheroes simply because they have been willing to serve Jesus. Do you know why Mrs. Pilton was willing to become your teacher while also being a full-time principal? It's because she serves Jesus. Do you know why Pastor Eddie said to himself, you know, I've got a million responsibilities, but sure, teach 8th grade history 1 hour a day, 5 days a week for 9 straight months? I'll do it. You know why? Because he serves Jesus. Do you know why Mrs. Markham didn't say, look, I already teach rowdy 1st graders. No way am I going to take on science for rowdy 8th graders too. You know why she didn't say that? Because Mrs. Markham serves Jesus. You know why Dr. Watson didn't say, "Excuse me, do you know who I am? I have a PhD. I am a legend in the mathematics community, and I will not waste my time with some 8th graders in a class called algebra." You know why she didn't say that? I mean, I hear her say it in private, but you know why she did not say that ever? Because Dr. Watson serves Jesus. And so, you guys, if you want to be successful, and I mean truly successful, remember the wise words of a foolish fish. It just keeps swimming. But more importantly, become a fool yourself who turns into a superhero because you, too, are willing to serve Jesus. Let's take a picture together.